Broad Street Review Podcast, Philly's online hub for arts, culture, and commentary, where art and ideas meet. I am your host, Darnell Radford. On today's podcast, I talk to Neil Bardhan, who steps into the role of Executive Director. We talk about his educational background, improvisation and storytelling, and the goals set for the future of Broad Street Review. Here is my interview with Executive Director Neil Bardhan. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am sitting in a classroom that I believe is Rep Radio Studio C-2 or something.
It is now.
This isn't my normal space, but I'm here anyway. So if you hear that echo, it's because we're in a little classroom in tiny little chairs. And I'm here with the Executive Director of Broad Street Review, Neil Bardhan.
Well done.
Did I say it right?
You did it right.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That's how I pronounce it, so good enough for me.
Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on this.
Yeah, so I feel like you and I joined Broad Street Review kind of around the same time. And I could be wrong. Maybe you were there before me.
It depends on how you refer to my joining Broad Street Review.
So well, yes, because you were also a contributor as well before. Wendy sat in this room with me and had a 2-hour conversation, and we talked about basically the state of arts journalism in general. Yeah. And she had some ideas about some things she wanted to bring in, and then I think shortly after that was like a staff meeting where I got to meet everybody.
That sounds about right.
And I met you.
Yeah.
And I probably had shared a theater space with you or been in similar spaces with you before then. So I've always wanted to take an opportunity to chat with all of our contributors. And since we had a seat change, I thought it was a good time to really call in on that. So here we are.
Perfect. Perfect timing.
So tell us a little bit about Neil.
Okay. I'll get into this, I guess, partly through my introduction to Broad Street Review, and that'll circle back. So I first learned of Broad Street Review, I guess 4 years ago or so, through Judy Waitman, who is a friend of mine from the comedy scene in Philly. And Judy and I were having lunch one day, and at the time I knew of Broad Street Review and her work on it, and I didn't fully understand the model of it. But I said something along the lines of, I'm hoping to see more performing arts around town that I'm not used to, contemporary dance and things like that. Yeah. And in basically the same breath, Judy said, well, do you want to write for Broad Street Review? And I said, is that allowed? Because I had no idea what the process was to become a contributor. And she said, yeah, first of all, it's all on our website. So listeners, you can go read that.
Yes.
And she said, if you are out there and you see something and it's interesting, write about it and send it over. And I said, oh, how interesting. So that led me to contribute something in Fringe Festival, that'd be 2015, 2014, probably 15.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just started tracking what was on the site a bit more regularly once I was invested as a writer, not just a reader.
Yeah.
And then sometime later, Wendy was becoming editor-in-chief and roles were shifting within the staff. And Wendy said, hey, I'd love to talk to you about your experience in social media management. Let's have a conversation about what it would mean for you to do social media for Broad Street Review. At the time, I was managing a number of accounts for different kinds of groups, everything from small companies to comedy projects, to my own personal world. And I said, that sounds interesting. And
I really wish I could put on my resume that I am the administrator of 7 Facebook pages.
Right. Nobody finds that interesting, but
no
it
one's
should
gonna
be.
hire me for
Right.
that. I originated the fan page of, maybe you've heard of them.
Yeah. At one point, I think I was managing 15 Twitter accounts simultaneously.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Which seems mind-blowing, but technically isn't.
It's not, depending on how you want to manage it, right?
You're just finding conversations and where those conversations fit.
Exactly. But yeah, so I got to become social media manager, and what that allowed me to do is get paid to read every article on BSR.
Yeah.
And know what was going on around town.
Cool.
And I thought, hey, this is a lovely way to keep up with what's happening, who's writing about it, who are the players, and figure out for myself and for others what is the best way to describe this work that's going on. And so that was a couple years of our lives together.
Yes.
And then last summer, Dan Rottenberg called me and said, we're looking at shifting some things. Are you interested in coming on as executive director? And I said, absolutely. Social media manager to executive director
that's a pretty
isn't the normal
job.
pipeline, but what's normal anymore? So I said, sure, let's have a conversation about what that looks like. And so since, I believe, November of 2018, I've been ED for Broad Street Review and no longer managing our social media.
Yeah,
there's
cool.
that too.
It does seem like we are a collection of. We're all in the cultural scene in some way. At times, it seems that we're heavy on theater. At least when we put out, there will be 2 or 3 reviews, and then I'll do a podcast for the same thing. And it's just like, we got to spread out. But what was your background? Isn't directly theater.
Well, it is and it isn't. So my arts background is in theater. Yeah. So my academic background, my college degree, and then my graduate work was in cognitive science and linguistics. So not theater.
So what can you do with that?
Well, I finished a PhD and went to a research position in the Netherlands for 3 years and studied foreign accented speech. That's a whole podcast episode in and of itself.
Yeah, and it pretty much means you can get a job in anywhere as a director somewhere.
Well,
because I feel like a lot of these places are like, PhD, call him in.
Come on. I'm sure he knows something about something. But yeah, at some point in that process, I realized I didn't want to be an active research scientist for the rest of my life. And I thought, time to reevaluate and figure out what other interests I have, what other skills I can use. And I always say, a recovering theater kid. I was very active in my high school drama club. I was on stage and backstage.
Yeah.
Stage managed a number of shows. I don't remember how many. And then followed up with doing more of that in college. And where I went to school, we didn't have a theater minor at the time. I probably would have minored if that was a possibility. Yeah. But I focused in being backstage much more than on stage. And that overlapped with my academic interests a lot. And the two kind of informed each other for a couple of years there. And so by the time I was finishing my postdoc and thinking, what do I like, what am I into, I was listening to a lot of storytelling podcasts. So The Moth, Story Collider, Risk were kind of the 3 main ones. This was like 2013. And I thought, hey, I love what they're doing here. They're distilling experiences into really compelling work that I'm experiencing over audio, over goofy speakers, and I'm brought in. Yeah. This is a great show that they've put on that then I get to listen to kind of in my kitchen. Yeah. I said, well, okay, this storytelling thing, this is very cool.
And storytelling reaches a broader audience too. It is a form of theater. It is definitely performance, but it blurs these lines.
It's one of the most primal forms of theater.
Yeah.
One of the most primal forms of art, even. And it really reminded me, what is it like to be a human and talk about human experiences? And so I thought, okay, now I want to draw on my arts experience and interests, connect that to my science interests, and that brought me to Philly and thinking about how to help scientists communicate their work in different ways. And so I thought, I'll learn about storytelling, I'll learn about comedy, I'll see what else Philly has going on. I'm pretty sure it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then, fast forward a year or so, and you get where I started this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about you, when you're not posting about a Broad Street Review, it's a post about improv, and you work with the In Crowd.
I'm part of the In Crowd.
Part of the In Crowd, and so I think about improvisation and storytelling in our cultural community. And it is a beast of its own. Like each one of those has its own little pocket.
Definitely.
And it's kind of like if you were to think about, I want to cover music. Okay, what part of music?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into classical. Okay, what part of classical? It gets you can drill down and get so deep into it. But I would be interested to know what your thoughts are on improvisation and storytelling scene here in Philly.
Yeah. They're both very vibrant scenes, and there are connections between them, but those connections are largely a couple of individuals. There's not a lot of places or organizations where there's that overlap of we do improv and comedy of various sorts, and also storytelling, which is not always comedy. And so I was actively trying to find out about the improv world and the storytelling world before I even got to Philly. I knew of First Person Arts, who I also work for, and I knew of them because one of my oldest friends had told the story at a story slam of theirs, 2009 or so, something like that, ancient history it feels like.
Yeah.
And so as I was looking to move to Philly, I started asking around, and I knew a couple people from, say, college life who had come here and done comedy, and I said, what's the deal with Philly comedy? How do I start this? What is it anyways? And they said, it's easy. You show up, you take a class, you come to a jam, you just meet some people. It's easy and it's fun.
Just keep coming back.
Exactly. So yeah.
Do we have anything on the caliber of like a UCB? Like would any of those pockets be considered that?
So Philly Improv Theater, which is at 2030 Sansom Street, just a stone's throw from where we are in Studio 2C.
Yeah.
FIT has been around for more than a few years. I should know exactly when they started. I used to work for them as well.
I remember when they were at the Shubin.
Yeah, I got to town right around the time they moved from the Shubin to the Adrian.
Oh, okay.
That's how I always think of it. I'm sure they moved to the Adrian because of me.
It was all your fault.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil.
FIT has classes across comedic disciplines and shows 7 nights a week, and we're not the level of UCB, which has multiple theaters in multiple states.
Yeah.
But in terms of if you want to go somewhere, see a bunch of different shows on any given night, FIT is a great place to do it.
And then also there we have Comedy Sports. Are they a part of FIT? Or
No, they're a separate thing.
Yeah.
They're part of a worldwide enterprise.
I feel like the Adrian is all comedy and then MacGuffin.
And also a yoga studio. You cannot forget the yoga studio on the third floor.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Where I once saw a fringe show. It wasn't a yoga fringe show. It was a magic fringe show.
Yeah.
Sorry, hypnosis. It was a comedic hypnosis show.
I remember there were a lot of conversations that I had been a part of throughout the years as Interact took over the Skybox, and but they were also making moves, and now they're over at the Drake, and the things that were going on in that building, there were so many plans and changes. And before that, Wilma Theater used to be housed there.
Oh wow, that definitely predates me.
Yes,
yeah.
That predated me, and I reminded myself the other day. I was at the Wilma Theater Fete for James Haskins.
Yep.
Who is James Haskins? We miss you, James. Just to see how many times these spaces sort of not necessarily flip over, but sort of provide housing for so many different disciplines. It's been great.
Yeah, and the Adrian has a beautiful range of spaces. It's not a ton of spaces, but have you been to the basement ever?
Only for rehearsal.
Okay,
But
yeah.
Has there ever been a show down there?
There have not been shows down
Okay,
there. But
yeah.
my point is that there's, these kind of hidden pockets of rehearsal
And I didn't
rooms
find that out until later. I was like, this has been here this whole time.
Right, and if you're if you were to be, I know that you are not, a casual theater goer,
Yes.
you wouldn't think about, where are their rehearsals taking place for this stuff? But
Yeah.
Adrian has
Oh no! If I can
rooms galore.
If I get a chance to wander, I
Yeah.
want to know where everything backstage is. Like I've been to Wilma so many times, but during the Fet, I was definitely backstage, looking. Oh, here's what happens back here. Okay, so on top of that, you,
yes.
like many other artists, you wear so many hats, and all those hats basically give you the skills and the qualification, like beyond your PhD, not a little thing over there,
it's a
to consult.
yes.
So tell me a little bit about your consulting, what the focus is there.
Yeah, so the focus of that is helping technical professionals communicate and present their work. So the core of what I started off doing was thinking, how do I build scientists' presentation skills? And I've expanded that because presentations are only one way that people talk about their work.
Yeah.
People send emails, people write papers. So I've coached somebody finishing their dissertation. I have a client where I basically read his emails once a week, not all of them, just a couple select ones, and he says, here's what I'm trying to say, here's how I've worded it, what feedback do you have?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of an editor.
You want to mark these 3 as private.
You do not want to use that word there because it does not mean what you think it means. I will always love scientific talks, whether they're for within a scientific community or for a lay audience. But I've opened up my mind to understanding the different ways that people have to talk about their work and the different opportunities that provides for learning new ways of doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So we often hear people's titles all the time, and we have a vague idea of what they do. In general, they just you represent the organization in that title, but never have I really heard, I guess at least on a podcast, sort of a deep dive into what these roles are, and I want to focus a little bit more on them. So tell me what an executive director does. Tell our listeners what an executive director does, and specifically your day-to-day at Broad Street Review.
Yeah, I can say that this executive director, I don't know about all executive directors.
We just drink coffee,
Right.
a lot of water.
Yes, that's the executive part. My role is to be a liaison between the Broad Street Review board and our staff, and also bridge between BSR as an organization and external organizations.
Yes.
So it's all about handshakes and emails and finding people kind of where they are and making introductions. So I've been working to bring on new board members over the past couple months. We've brought on several new ones.
Great.
Looking to continue building that in a number of ways, and just hearing what's going on the staff side and knowing what's happening there, translating that to the board as needed, and vice versa, bringing what the board is having questions about and what they're interested in back to the staff. And then it's a lot of conversations with other organizations around Philly and finding out what are they up to, where could we find some kind of activity to go in on together. Whether that's them just handing us money, which is a nice activity to go in on together, or organizing some kind of symposium, or setting up a set of columns that discuss a particular issue. So, I've had, without naming names, I've had so many great conversations with different groups in Philly.
Cool.
Where I just say, this is so fun to be in this room and talking to this group about something that a year ago I couldn't have envisioned BSR embarking on, let alone with having me in the room to do it.
So when you're not steering these communications for Broad Street Review, Before I get to that,
Sure.
everybody has this moment in the day where they are arguably their most productive. And what part of the day would you say it is for you?
Yeah. These days it's probably around 2 p.m. Yeah. Then I've dealt with most of the morning emails. And I can sit down and really focus on something. And I figure most people are in their afternoon groove as well.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, it's easy for me to mute my inbox.
Yes.
And go in on something.
That's usually when I remind myself that I still haven't eaten lunch yet. And then I have to weigh it out. I'm like, well, we're done at 5. So maybe I'll just wait. Or I'll just escape. Depending on the weather. What's the weather like?
It's always a good time to drink water, Darnell.
Yes.
If people walk away with nothing else from this episode.
Yes.
Stay hydrated.
So we're going to take a pause so we can drink water right now.
Is this sponsored water?
All right. It was tasty.
It was necessary.
So, we step into these roles. We start to think about. We have to think more long term now.
Sure.
So, do you have any specific goals that you hope to achieve in this new role at Broad Street Review?
I can talk about. It's great. There's plans that I can talk about, and there's plans that are a little quieter. One of the ones I'm happy to talk about is ramping up the number of events that we have as an organization. And I have almost more ideas than we have time for this. But
that's good.
I like
we
that.
just sort through them.
Right. And we find the ones that we need to put on the back burner or find the right partner for. So I would say, let's say 2 years ago or so, there would be a writers meetup a year. And maybe sometimes some board members might be at that, or some readers who contribute at a certain level. Yeah. And that was valuable. I went to as many of those as I could, and always enjoyed meeting other contributors, 'cause that's what I was. And it just seemed very valuable. And I have so far amped up the number of writers meetups that we've had, trying for about 1 a quarter. Yeah. And just keeping them fairly low key, so that there's that bucket of kind of almost internal events. Cool. But then I'm also looking to do more public facing work. So putting on a panel or symposium for an evening, really, with people speaking from different parts of the arts and culture world in or outside Philadelphia, and speaking about something. We did this a couple of years ago about arts funding. Yes. And that was a great question, and that was a wonderful evening. And I think we should have more conversations like that.
Definitely.
And
even if we return to that conversation, it was good conversation.
It's a good point.
Well,
yeah. Why not revisit that conversation almost with those same people, or find a few new voices. Yeah. So and so I think part of the goal is finding a range of interests to hit upon. BSR covers so many different domains and fields, while also having a range of, I would say, the level of activity. So it's one thing to sit through a set of talks for an evening. It's another to go on, say, a First Friday crawl with a bunch of BSR contributors, where all we're doing is looking at a couple of galleries in Old City and just chit-chatting along the way.
Only the podcaster hit record. Right. Wonder the conversations we had.
Just different kinds of lifts to do. Yeah. And to provide different kinds of experiences, because our readers are diverse and have a great number of interests. Yeah. And I think, again, that wonderful set of organizations that we can partner with, we should just open as many doors as we can.
I'm always in this thinking, no one's listening, and this is why I enjoy doing this, because I'm not like governed by I just got a bad note, or there was a comment, somebody trashed like the last podcast or anything like that. That's never what I get from these. We always get, I heard that one about and that was so great, or this one here, I was able to take notes from that, and that was really helpful to do, blah, 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 and that was really great. And I was like, it's good to know. It's good validation.
I pointed somebody recently, this will bother me for the next little while until I remember later. I pointed somebody to a specific episode this podcast because it was the one where you toured Theater Exile.
Oh, yes.
Right. And I said, it's such a cool concept for a podcast episode.
Yeah.
It really shows you what's inside there without having
seeing.
you go there or
Yes.
actual pictures. And I thought, what a great experience to share.
I will say that I was thinking a little bit about accessibility with it because
Great.
it's like, well, I've always wanted to do something like that, but I feel like that has to be a YouTube channel. And if it is a YouTube channel, we have to worry about lighting, and it has to be filmed, it has to be edited, and so on. And I was like, so we're going to take an audible tour of this new space and just see if we can, we were moving into different spaces. So we started outside. We ended up going downstairs, and you can hear all of that stuff too.
Getting back to the writers' meetups, though, yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorite parts is to overhear somebody say to another writer, "Oh, I loved your recent piece on XYZ."
Yeah.
Because the other contributors are reading. We know other people are reading because we can see what our traffic is like.
Yeah.
But so often writers, and this is not just true at BSR, but I think in the world, and it's all artists and creators, the creators don't always get that positive feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy now to say, oh, I read that article, that was nice, I'll just remember that for another time. And it's rare for somebody to comment, at least on BSR's site, and say, oh, what a lovely piece, thanks so much. Just a simple line like that. But then you get us in person with each other.
Yeah.
And it's this wonderful network of, oh, I saw your piece on this. Oh, hey, I've been meaning to ask you for 6 months about that.
We're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Have I been off the radar?
And I'm at the heart of so much of what I do within our space and also the world is just trying to connect people to each other and have them have real conversations about what matters to them. So that's the heart of my science communication work and the storytelling work, and in some ways improv, but also at BSR is making those connections and saying, this is important work that we're doing. In a way, it gets easier and easier for me every day to justify what we do. Just the world is changing so rapidly online and offline that it's a cakewalk to say, art journalism really matters.
Yes, it does.
For everybody.
Yes.
I always say it just like that as well. Everybody.
I always say this as a producer, that I bring people to the table with what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it is. Figuring out how these things work and how we can all work together.
Yeah, a cultural potluck.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So we are here, we're seeing the summer just very...
I see it out the window.
Within reach.
Right.
Today's kind of overcast, which is actually great. We're going to have the windows open, aerate the house. Do you have any summer plans?
Yes. So I've got a little bit of travel. I'm going to the shore for a week with my partner's family. It's a nice little tradition we all have. And, a weekend here, a weekend there, getting out of the city, which is a nice respite. What else do I have going on? Just a lot of personal writing projects. Yeah. I'll talk about one in particular that I learned of the other day and then signed on to. I believe it's called the 1,000-word challenge, 1,000-word project, something like that. And the idea is that you commit for the final 2 weeks of June to write 1,000 words a day.
Ooh.
And I certainly do that between emails and tweets and
which is basically
whatnot,
a blog
shopping
entry.
list, right? But 1,000 words on a particular topic, or I might split it up between some personal writing and some more professional work.
Yeah.
Just kind of concretely laying out in paragraphs, here's some things that I've wanted to say for a while.
Cool.
So yeah, I've been collecting writing prompts
Flexing
as well.
that muscle. Yeah, that's a good thing. There was a time so I do have a blog on my personal site. I was contributing to this blog before I posted to the blog.
Yes.
For about 3 months.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I realized, I'm like, what are you writing this for?
Yeah.
Then I started putting them out, and I was doing like twice a week. And then I realized I had enough here for 3 months.
You had all that kind of backlog that people hadn't seen yet.
Yeah, it was just these thoughts that were running through my head while I was on a train on my way from A to B. And you'd be surprised. Like, remember back in school when they would tell you no less than how many words or how many pages, and you're just like, how am I going to fudge this? Yeah. And you're like, no, this is easier than you think.
Yeah.
You just have to get used to it in a rhythm. It's kind of like, somebody who thinks about running is not a good idea for them. It isn't, because currently you're not running.
Right.
But once you start running, you're like, oh, okay, this is a thing.
I've learned that the past couple of weeks, actually. Yeah. I'm running a 5K on Saturday, which I've never done before. I am ill prepared for this race, and yet better prepared than I've ever been in my life for it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's by just going out and running. And it's always why am I doing this? Oh, I don't like running.
Yeah.
And then 7 minutes into it, it's like, okay, this isn't so bad. I see why people do it.
Yeah. I participated in a walk one year, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to finish. And by the time I got done, the sore I felt was like, if I could just wake up with this every day.
Every day.
Like, it's a good sore.
Yeah.
You know your body has actually worked. You tore some muscles so that they can repair themselves, and you're like, you did the right thing here.
Yeah.
Now let's try to make this a habit.
That good ache.
Yes. I didn't make it a habit, though.
There's always this summer, Darnell.
Yeah, who knows? Actually, there's some sort of fashion trends now that are like about how to keep some of your tech with you, because that was always my thing. I was like, I need a bag because if it's an emergency, I need to have a phone or something.
Right.
But now they've got these things where there's like an extra pocket that's a little bit more like hidden, kind of tucked away, that you can just slide your phone into. Yeah. And now you don't have to worry about having a bunch of stuff with you. So I might have to pick up a pair. Yeah.
There have been some, I was going to say amazing, but they're simple innovations.
Yes.
I'm thinking that this one pair of shorts that I have that just has this tiny zippered pocket in the back.
Yeah. Just keep everything safe.
It's just for, your keys and a little bit of money or something like that. It's like, what have we been waiting for as a society? Look at like 70s running shirts. There's no pockets at all. How are we supposed to keep your keys
There's
anywhere?
Somebody in a board meeting going, no, we need to sell bags. And men aren't buying enough bags.
Our bag division will fold.
There's that there is somebody trying to maintain the status quo somewhere all the time.
Surely.
Just afraid of change and innovation.
Afraid of spare change.
I wanted to ask you, what can our listeners, everyone out there, I'm talking about you washing your clothes right now, you doing the laundry,
you making a pie.
You making a pie. I hope you're gonna share that pie.
That's what I was gonna say.
Don't eat that whole pie though. Just have some.
Right.
What can our listeners do to help us achieve our goals at Broad Street Review?
Yeah, a couple easy things. One is subscribe to our newsletter and read that when it comes out. We have twice a week we have a newsletter. One of them comes from Elena, and she puts together what's new on the site, and then Kyle puts together the what's new, what's next kind of weekend preview. Yeah. And I love opening those, and I am as inside almost as it gets. And I still am always excited to see, what's at the top of the newsletter this week. So subscribe and read the newsletter. And then donations. Every little bit helps. Yeah. We love our ongoing donations of people who give $5, $10, $15 a month and just kind of keep that sustaining for a while. If you have one lump that you want to give at one particular time, we'll happily accept that as well. But that's how we help pay our writers and help upgrade what our site is capable of. And it is important work, and so much of it is just media in general these days is fragile and fascinating. Yeah. And so readers can really do a lot for us. So I would ask readers to consider how much would you pay a month for this if we were to charge a particular flat fee. What's it worth to you? Yeah. And so there's that. And then the other easy piece is tell a friend about Broad Street Review. Just talk to somebody and say, hey, I've been reading this site for a while and I don't know if other people are on it as well. And just share an article that you think really resonates with you or might resonate with your friend or colleague. Yeah. Because that's as a person who loves learning about the web and reading new things. That's how I find out about things the most, is just somebody's passed it on. I need just a little nudge from somebody sometimes.
Yeah, and if you have something long-winded to say, instead of blasting it on your social media channel, you send it to us.
That's right. That's right. We don't need more tweet storms. We need more long-form, well-thought-out posts.
Yeah, definitely.
With an editor.
And we have a lot of people who have a lot to say, and a lot of it is very valuable and part of conversations that are already being had. So,
definitely.
You know, and the one thing I do think that we're doing really well is we're finding a way to sort of create the one-stop shop for those conversations.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yes. You too can be a part of Broad Street Review.
Yeah, I'll encourage folks find writing prompts in the conversations that you're already having. I'm thinking personally about some of the DMs that I have going on. I'm just thinking, all right, well, that was a thing, and maybe I want to say more than a few sentences about that. Why don't I sit down and lay that out on paper? And I would encourage folks, in whatever they're up to around town, find that, and give yourself the time and patience to do it. Again, it's that flexing that muscle that I think a lot of people don't really realize how enjoyable it can be. And then on top of it, having a wonderful editor like Elena or Kyle take a look at it as well is another little joy.
Cool. And how can our listeners keep in touch with you?
Oh.
How can they find out what you're doing around the community?
Great question. The biggest one is I'm on Twitter as Neil P. Bardhan, Neil P as in Peter, Bardhan. So that's my Twitter feed. And I post shows I'm in and what I'm reading and humorous observations about the world around us. And then I also have a little monthly newsletter of my own, tinyletter.com/Neil P. Bardhan, where I basically just say, here are the books that I'm reading, here's what I'm eating, here's what I'm deleting, and here's where I'm meeting people.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I would say, gosh, you didn't prepare me for this question, darn it.
Tough question.
That's a great question. Yeah.
What else to add?
I would say I would challenge folks to challenge themselves and see a show or have an experience in the region, in the arts world that they think they wouldn't otherwise have. If there's something that you're on the fence about, just go ahead and do it, and it's going to be worth your time.
Be a part of the conversation, and if you don't know where to get started, you can always come to BroadStreetReview.com where art and ideas meet.
Thank you.
Neil, it's been great chatting with you today.
What a pleasure.
This will be the first of hopefully many check-ins with you.
Love it.
So we can always stay in the know about what's going on inside of Broad Street Review.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me, and have a great summer. I'm sure I'm going to see you throughout the summer, of course.
You certainly will, and thank you for this wonderful water.
We were working on the sponsorship, so we're not going to name who provided the water because emails came late, and this is what happens when you drag your feet. So you get a sponsor credit. All right, Neil, thanks a lot for chatting.
All right, bye-bye.
Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.